Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything that I say in reaction to all these shows is completely speculative based on very little information. Let's keep that in mind. Let's watch.
It was after Christmas.
And then there's Easter.
What? Easter is like 4 months after that.
I know. That's why we need to stay here and save money.
I haven't reacted to Jibri and Miona yet because there wasn't much to say, or I thought, well, I probably wouldn't say enough or have enough clips to react to justify a video. So let me catch you all up. Jibri, I'm looking at my notes. He's 28. He's from South Dakota, and he considers himself to be kind of a out there, fashion-wise sort of person. And I think he said something like, well, since I'm one of the only people of color in my town, I thought I would just lean into it and just dress the way people see me, which is outrageous. And I'll tell you, I had a similar childhood. I didn't dress like that. I couldn't afford it. Like most of my outlandish clothing when I was young, I bought at secondhand stores for like 50 cents. But I remember thinking that I think it's because I'm half Japanese, and although many people would consider me to be just a shade off of white, I lived in an all-white community where my Asianness, however small, 50%, was extremely noticeable to people. Let's just put it that way. In the 70s and 80s, I didn't go very far, people pointing out like, what's wrong with your eyes? Or are you an Asian? Or where are you from? Or, all those kinds of questions. I got those questions well into later decades. I still do occasionally, not in Seattle. When I'm in cities, particularly on the West Coast, I don't get any kind of questions. But anyway, I also would dress a little funny. In fact, should I show a picture? Okay, I'll show a picture right here. I don't know what picture I'll find, but maybe when I went to prom, I'll show another. Oh man, I don't know if I want to show these pictures, but it's embarrassing. It was the 80s and I was at Value Village, and the principle that I followed was I just didn't want to dress like everyone else. I just felt like if I'm already being looked at funny, I might as well just dress different and almost like a visual FU to people of like, okay, fine, you see me as different, well, I'm going to own it, and you're just going to deal with it. And a lot of people might be able to relate to that. Queer people, for example, not all queer people, of course. So Jibri was saying that, and Miona is from Serbia, and they actually met in person. Oh, also, Jibri met her, I think because he's in a band, or I know he's in a band with a Serbian individual, and they are kind of a thing in Serbia, I guess. And in terms of fame, I don't know how famous, but so I think he might have met Miona that way. The other thing I'll say, and now she just landed in South Dakota, and they're meeting Jibri's mom and stepdad. I think stepdad has been dad for a long time, since he was a kid. So it's stepdad, but he calls him dad. And mom is a therapist. I remember wanting to react when I always want people in my field to represent us well, and they don't always, especially when people write them into movies and TV shows. The therapist almost always does something egregiously unethical or is just a bad therapist. So I'm always like cringing when I am about to see a therapist on screen. But, I don't know anything about her. But I did cringe a little bit when she was criticizing Miona for her revealing clothes on Instagram. I can't remember what the criticism was, but, is it normal to have that if you're a mom? Sure. Is it normal to have that attitude if you're in South Dakota? Yeah, but I would hope that a therapist would understand that women can dress how they want to. I mean, as long as they're not harming other people. And we don't want to be coming from a slut-shaming place. I don't know if that's where the mom was coming from, but it just had a little bit of that to it. I don't know what really happened. The show edits it pretty heavily. If she were here, she might say, no, this is what I said, and they edited this out. And, I can allow for that. But anyway, the mom seems like a lovely person. Both the parents. Jibri seems like a lovely person as well. Miona, we don't know that much about because we haven't seen her on the screen much. The other thing I'll say is that people have been emailing me, asking me to talk about Miona and her blackfishing. If you don't know what blackfishing is in general, and I don't know the technical term, or I don't know the technical definition, but it's when people will appropriate the look of black people when they're not black. as a way of trying to, let's say, steal the fashion, the vibe, the history, the, steal the culture of Black people because you just want to, because on that day, or you're in a phase of life where you just want to adopt that kind of look. And the history of that is long in the United States, and maybe around the world, but I know the United States, in that white people have been stealing from Black people in various ways throughout history, whether it's Elvis stealing Black music. Blackfishing is another example of that. Iggy Azalea might have also been accused of this. I don't remember the term blackfishing being used, and if you're not a target of that kind of harm, it might be really hard to relate to, even to the fact where you might look at people accusing Miona of blackfishing and think like, well, what's wrong? Because I don't know if you saw, but Miona, when she is all done up, so to speak, for pictures on Instagram, or she seemingly puts a lot of bronzer on or is in the tanning bed for days to make her, if you didn't know better, you would look at her in that presentation and think that she was Black. I don't know all the signaling. I think makeup might be involved, hair color, skin color, fashion, all this kind of thing. Now, what she will say, and people sent me this as well, for her, she actually has non-Caucasian DNA in her ancestry, and she will also claim, she also claimed that there are traditional practices in her country of Serbia that is what she's actually riffing off of. She's not riffing off of Black culture in the United States, she's riffing off of traditional Serbian culture. And then what people would say in rebuttal of that is, you're just making that up. I don't know if she is, of course. It certainly looks to me from the outside like she's trying to go for a Kim Kardashian look, which ironically she's also been accused of blackfishing. So why is that hurtful? Well, it doesn't necessarily hurt everyone. I'm certainly there are a lot of Black people that will hear about that and say like, well, I don't care, who cares? And I'll just speak for myself. My family was imprisoned in the United States during World War II because they were Japanese. I've talked about this before. People understand what they call the internment camps. I hate that term. Internment camp sounds like it's fun. It wasn't fun. It was a prison. Actually, it was worse than prison because my family was in Heart Mountain, Wyoming, which is very bad weather, actually similar to South Dakota, super hot in the summer, super cold in the winter. They just have paper thin walls, no insulation, just plywood. They were just quickly constructed shacks that my great-grandparents lived in at an elderly age, and they were just rounded up, put on trains, and imprisoned. My family, my people I knew growing up. And it's a travesty, and everyone understands that. So when someone, say, in their house, a white person in particular, were to have, say, accoutrement regarding the camps, the imprisoning of my family, like in their bathroom, for example, they have like all these old-timey photos. And one of the photos is maybe even literally a picture of my relatives, because these are published. There's a archive of these kinds of photos. And actually, my great uncle was a photographer, and he actually took a lot of photos that are considered archival for that time, because of course the U.S. government didn't take pictures because they didn't care or they were ashamed of it or whatever. And just to drive the point home, no one preserved their homes, their businesses. These are people with careers. Imagine for yourself that everyone in your neighborhood is just rounded up, and you just have to hope that your house is still there when you get back. And of course it won't be, because you'll be, you wouldn't have paid your bills, or at the very least, racists will come and burn your house down because you're considered to be the enemy. And again, I always say this, but in case some people wonder, there were no cases of espionage from Japanese Americans during World War II. They were imprisoned for no reason. Okay, can you tell I'm angry about it? And my Japanese relatives and many other Japanese people are so polite because they're nice people and they're oppressed, so they don't have a voice, that they rarely complained about it and talked about it. So I feel like it's my job and in my family, and I will, to people around me, get real worked up about it, because it's a massive injustice that happened, within generations of people that I actually talked to and knew very well. Anyway, so if I saw a white person having a picture because they just wanted kitschy things in their bathroom, and I saw a picture of my family imprisoned during World War II, that would be a shock to me. It would feel like they were just flippantly using this thing as decoration instead of honoring it. In my house, I would, if I had and I do, it's in a place of honor. It's among pictures. I feel like I want to cry. It's in a section of, I recently moved, so I in my old house, but I plan on sort of recreating this. It's a section of photos. You have family photos on the wall of ancestors, and there's a section and a picture for the imprisonment during World War II. It's very important to me and my family. It's an important part of our history, and I am sore about it. So if I saw someone be flippant, I'd be upset at me. There's a fair amount of appropriation, like with Ella. When I see people appropriating Japanese culture, anime, this kind of thing, it doesn't really get to me. It would get to me more if people appropriated the history of my ancestors in the United States. Plus, I don't really identify with Japan. I'm more, because my ancestors have been in the States since, for over 120 years. The Japan that my ancestors knew, it was very different than the Japan that exists today. So I feel more kinship with Japanese American culture. Anyway, I don't know if that was a great example that I gave, but that is the pattern that some white people will do. Not a lot. I would say a minority of white people do this, but they do, and it hurts. And so you can imagine being a black person, of course, centuries of slavery, and then after the Civil War, you have Jim Crow and massive hate crimes and harm, lynchings, just horrific behavior by white people to black people. We all understand that. Then a white person comes along and just says, yeah, I'm going to pick that from your culture. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. But I'm going to retain all my privilege. I'm going to retain all of my history and the fact that my people enslaved your people. But you know what? I like that. I like that. I like that. It's now mine. Your dreadlocks, your look, I'm going to do my skin. And let's forget the fact that you worked hard to actually pull yourself out from under the thumb of my people's oppression and establish yourself with your own culture, with your own art, with your own music, with your own fashion, with your own vibe. And you know what? I'm just going to come in and take it. And it's now mine, and I get it. So you can imagine, to a black person, that would be enraging. Now, not to all black people. Some black people that I know would be like, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really get to me that much. But other black people, it's deeply hurtful, which we can all understand. Okay. Now, Miona is from Serbia. Her ancestors, I'm just going to take a guess, did not own black slaves. Her ancestors did not participate in the Jim Crow South in the United States. Or I don't know how she identifies, but, she's Serbian. I don't know it's sort of ridiculous that we even have these terms, but anyway, she's not black from what I understand, and that she should understand how it comes across. If she were the first person that did it, for a lot of black people, they'd be like, but she isn't the first person that's doing it. She is the millionth person that has done it. And I guess the accusation is she should have known better. She should have said, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't need to do that. I can be pretty and presentable on Instagram without appropriating your look. And the skin thing is really the kicker, right? If it was just her hair and her makeup and her outfits, then you could argue that it isn't appropriation. But to try to really come across as if you were a different race, a traditionally oppressed race, and maybe some of y'all even know out there that Serbia has a long history of mistreating black people, or the opposite. I don't know. I don't have any idea what Serbian history is regarding race relations. I just don't know. I'm fairly certain that Serbia has been oppressed by other more powerful militaries in the past. So really, to me, the problem that I saw, and these are all just alleged posts and communications that people are emailing me, I would understand, I think, in a similar way that Alina understood that the N-word was bad, but didn't understand how bad it was, because I believe that if she really understood how bad it was for us in the United States, she would not have used it, even if she kind of wanted to. I think she thought it was, she knew it was a bad word. She actually said that in her, she did a post on YouTube. I actually reacted to it, and she actually responded to my reaction to it. And she said, yes, she knew it was bad. She didn't know it was bad. So similar to that, I wonder if for Miona, that she didn't know that it is as hurtful as it is for many people. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that hypothetically she didn't know. Okay, but once she goes on the show and they show all those pictures and all the posts start coming out, she apparently came across those postings or had people communicate to her. And instead of coming out and saying, oh my God, I had no idea, I'm so sorry, I just really like how Kim Kardashian looks, or, you know, whomever, that, and I guess I was darkening my skin, not because I wanted to look black, but I just really love that skin tone. I don't like my skin tone, or whatever. If she said something like that and was mortified, Alina was actually mortified when she was accused. She posted a video. I think she's on the road to true mortification, a wise mortification, let's just put it that way. But I believe her that she was sincerely mortified once she was told about what she did. Now, again, I dissected this whole thing earlier, but just to get out ahead, some people will say, well, you know, she did spend a year in the United States. Yes, but she was an exchange student. She didn't speak English that well back then. She was in high school. She might have been around other white kids that would use the N-word in a very flippant way. We could absolutely imagine that. So just the fact that she was in the States doesn't necessarily make it required that she would have known that. Anyway, point is, I don't know about Alina. You can make your own judgment call about that. I, in no means, am letting her off the hook, and I didn't in my reaction video to her. The main thesis was, if you knew it was kind of bad, why did you use it? And there are other posts that are always kind of in the direction of being playful and flippant with other people's cultures, which I'm just going to take a guess and say that might be an element in white Russian culture. I know enough about the history of the Soviet Union. I'm just going to take a guess and say that the white elite in Moscow were not exactly sensitive to people of color. I don't know that, but I'm just going to take a guess. Could be me just imposing American experiences onto them, which, you know, Americans tend to do, which I don't want to do. But anyway, so if she came out and just said that, said, oh my God, you know, if Miona said, oh my God, I didn't know, I'm so sorry, I'll never do that again. Is it okay if I have braided hair? Is it okay if I wear this? You know, what's going on here? I'll stop with the deep tan, which, yeah, I see that, but I kind of like this look. Is that okay? You know, have a conversation. But that's not what she did. What she did was, y'all need to shut up, and I'm appropriating culture of my own. I'm using my own culture from the traditional Serbian hairstyles. And she said she had Mexican in her. Certainly you can say you're Mexican, right? But in terms of a DNA test, typically you would be told you're either native Mexican, indigenous, or you're Spanish or something else. So if she were indigenous Mexican, then okay. But her natural skin color, the difference, and I don't know if it was a filter or what, but the difference is, is notable. It's not like it's just her with a regular tan, in my opinion, anyway. And the internet's opinion agrees with that as well. So if she had said, apologize, if she had apologized, it would have been different. That's not what she said. She said everyone needs to shut up. And now maybe she will have emerging wisdom around that. People are usually defensive at first, me included. Maybe she already has. I don't know. That kind of reactivity, to me, sometimes indicates that the individual knows they did something wrong and they just don't care, or they don't care to know that they did something wrong, and that kind of just makes it so much worse to me. If someone acts like for example, just, I know I'm yammering, but I feel like this is a subject we don't get to talk about very often, that if someone had that picture of my ancestors in their bathroom and I went to them and I would say, what's the significance of this picture? And if they're like, oh, I just saw it at an art sale, or I saw it online, or I printed it out, and I just thought it looked really cool. And I say, do you know what this is? And they're like, yeah, it's the internment camps during World War II. And this one is a picture of Paris, and this one is a picture of a cowboy. And I'd be like, okay, let me tell you, that's what it looked like to me. And when I see this picture, let me tell you how it makes me feel. I'd probably take it easy on them. If I had a couple of drinks, I probably wouldn't take it easy on them, but I would try to take it easy on them, because I'm of the perspective that people are innocent until proven guilty. So if you don't know, you don't know. And cultural appropriation is one of those things that's really nuanced and hard to understand. And if you're not around those kind of conversations, you might just have no awareness of it. So I would try to be nice at first. And if they said, oh my God, I had no idea, I'm guessing they would if I was at their house and I was a guest, they would probably immediately, they would hopefully ask me what I wanted, and I would say, well, I'd like you to take it down. If you want to put it in a place of respect, go for it. If you don't want to do that, I would understand. Your house doesn't really call for that, and why would you have that in your house? Because you're not Japanese American. But yeah, I would kindly request, and I would also kindly request that you maybe evaluate all these pictures for what you're doing and how you're just playing with other people's histories, and how much pain they might feel if you were to display it like it was just kitschy. And then they would probably take it down and it would go away, and I would forget it. They would be mortified in all likelihood, and I would say, it's fine, you didn't know, and I get it. And they don't teach this kind of stuff necessarily when you're growing up, and we don't talk about it enough. And Japanese people are too damn polite, so you probably would never hear it except for me, and I'm a loudmouth Japanese person. There are loudmouth Japanese people, by the way. Now, let's cover what's happening right now. How long have I been talking? An hour? I don't know. So what they're just doing right now, if you remember from all the way back when I showed the clip, was that, and it's been an ongoing conversation between the two of them, that Miona is staunch. It's similar to what Yaro was, but it seems more stubborn, or she seems more sure of it, that she does not want to live in South Dakota. She wants to live in LA. I wonder what she thinks would happen if they moved to LA, that they would suddenly become rich and famous or something. I could imagine someone believing that. That's not what happens when you move to LA. 99.9999% of people in LA just live regular lives similar to what you might live in South Dakota. Now, you might have more access to restaurants and movies and other kinds of culture that South Dakota doesn't have. But anyway, so she wants to go there. Fine, she wants to go there. Maybe have a conversation about, if that's a deal breaker, then maybe have a conversation about that before you get married, before you come out, because he is resisting that. Two, if it is really a big deal to you, there's a way to talk about it. Like, hey, husband of mine, I know this is extremely inconvenient to you because you have a job here and your family are here, but I don't want to live in South Dakota, but I really want to be with you. So if it's a deal breaker, I'll stay here with you. But can we talk about possibly moving somewhere else? I've always wanted to live in LA. Or maybe could we visit LA and just even see what it might be like if we moved here? Or just a city, I don't want to live in South Dakota. Can we talk about that? Is that okay? I think Mike and Natalie, as well, as there was an argument about that. And it seems like there's no conversation around it. Or if you're Jibri, you'd be like, I know you want to, am I saying his name right? Yeah. Or if you're Jibri and you're like, hey, I know you really want to move somewhere else, but let's talk about it, because I don't want to dictate our lives. I want us to work together. But there are some realities to us moving away from South Dakota that would be really hard for us. And my job, and you can't work for a while. So let's maybe figure that out. Maybe we'll visit there for a couple weeks and let's try it on, but let's kind of take it slow. there's rarely a conversation around that. It's usually just kind of attack each other and retreat, and then you put off the conversation, and then it explodes.
They're going to be here. Communication is the core of a really healthy relationship, and I'm not seeing that with...
Yeah, so this is actually a bit of a pet peeve of mine. It's a phrase that therapists will say too, but a lot of lay individuals will say as well. I think I have a dog hair on my face. It's itching me. That communication is key in a relationship. And I find that I don't know what people mean by that, and I don't know what people are receiving when they hear that. Because to me, I think a lot of people interpret that as we have to talk a lot, but that's not what I would recommend people focus on. It's about communicating accurately and fairly. That's the key to a good relationship. It's not because I think some people will be like, hey, I'm just speaking my truth. Hey, this is how I feel. I feel like you're an a-hole and I don't want to live here. Hey, I'm just communicating. Communicating is important in a relationship. It's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is fair and accurate. Because an accurate communication would be, hey, honey, Miona, when you talk about moving so quickly, it scares me because I can't do that right away. And frankly, I don't want to. And I'm worried that if I try to assert what I want, because you're so staunch about it, you're going to leave me. And that makes me afraid. So it makes me not want to talk about it with you because you don't seem to want to work with. I also feel hurt that you don't want to negotiate about it. You just seem to be like, this is just going to happen. Like you're the only one who makes a choice on that. She could say the same thing. That's communication. It's not just communicate is good. It's accurate and fair and helpful and constructive and differentiated.
Some expectations that we would have. Jibri, are you giving me a evil look already?
No.
Okay. Taking care of the house and cooking and those kinds of things. Maybe 1 or 2 meals a week that you guys would cook and take care of. Okay.
Makes sense that for the mom, she's like, well, I don't want to be making all your food. I don't want to be doing all the chores. You two are grown individuals. I'm working all the time. My husband's working all the time. Miona, you're not working at all. So, you would it would be expected that you would do at least the amount of chores that everyone. I don't know if they're going to say that to Miona, but yeah, it's a good conversation to have. Let's see how they manage it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I don't know how good it's gonna be, but we can try.
Yeah, we can try.
I don't know what we're picking up on right now, but good on Miona. She's like, yeah, just real quick. Absolutely. Let's do it. I don't know if you're going to like my food, but I can absolutely do it. Let's do it. And for Jibri, from the beginning, he's been giving off a vibe of a child or a teenager. I'm not saying he is a teenager or a child or that he's being childish, but if we watch this dynamic, if I didn't know how old he was and he didn't look like an adult, I would assume he was, 15, 16 years old. When mom is saying, I want you to do chores, and you're like being quiet, you're like, oh, and you're giving kind of the stink eye, but not a lot. That's what a kid will do, and we expect them to be that way because they're immature. An adult would listen, and if you don't like it, you use your words. If you have kids, you will frequently be saying this phrase, use your words, don't whine, don't use vocalizations like, or you roll your eyes. Use your words. That's what adults do. It's less annoying, it's more respectful, it's more understandable if you use your words. So you would use your words and say, okay, Mom, I think you're coming on a little strong, and I don't want you to, can we talk about this another time? This is our first night. Or, Mom, I don't want you to control everything. I'm a grown man, or whatever it is that you want to say, then say it. But he's giving off that vibe. And he also said earlier that he was worried heading into this dinner that Mom was going to be a therapist and was going to therapize them or something. And I don't know the dynamic that the mom has. She certainly doesn't give off a vibe that she would impose unfairly on others, but who knows what's going on behind the scenes. But I will say that the public has this notion that therapists impose on others. That is not what therapists are supposed to do anyway. Good therapists, well-trained therapists, will never do that. That's the opposite of what therapy is. Therapy, unless it's court-ordered or some kind of specific situation, but the vast majority of therapists get into this job and then become trained and supervised to talk with people who want your help. When I'm because sometimes my trainees will have this notion that their client is sitting there, they'll see something, wrong with their client. They'll try to help them with that without checking in with the client first to say, would you like me to help you with that? And so the phrase that I tell my trainees is, dentists don't roam the neighborhood and push people down and pull teeth out, even if it would benefit the patient. A dentist doesn't see you at a party, see a cavity, and say, I'm going to pull you have a cavity, I'm going to pull that tooth because it's going to rot your mouth. The diagnosis might even be correct. Dental work, for the most part, and therapy for the most part, is a voluntary thing. You assess and diagnose and say, you have a cavity, and I highly recommend that you engage with a dentist, me or someone else, to remove that tooth, or else it could cause the rest of your teeth to rot out. I just want you to know that. It's your choice. Therapy is the same. I recognize, I'm noticing in you that you have the following problem. I highly recommend that we add that as a goal or objective to therapy with me or someone else. Would you like to do that? A very, very important step. And if the client says, 1, no, I don't want to. 2, I'm not ready. 3, I don't think I have that problem. Then you can try to convince them. But if they decide that it's not a problem for them, within reason, and in most situations, you would just say, okay, well, I did my best, and let's work on the things that they do want to work on. So I want people to know that. Not only potential clients out there, but also, and really ongoing clients, because another thing that I think even current clients will think is, well, I'm laying it all out there, and the therapist tells me what's wrong with me and then does stuff to me without asking me if I want to do that. So people have that attitude going into therapy. Again, some therapists actually operate that way. It's not a good way to operate because, 1, you could do things to clients that they don't want you to do. 2, you're not giving the client power and the ability to, you're not empowering your client with the choice and with the knowledge of what you're doing and with being in charge of their own treatment, right? The client has to participate. It's not like the client just sits there and you do stuff to them. They have to be involved in the change process. They're 99% involved in it. Anyway, so I want people to know that. And but maybe when Jibri said that, he was referring to a vibe of micromanaging that the mom has done over time, but we've seen no evidence of that, but maybe we will.
And I definitely want to start working on starting some business here.
People's faces, or is it actually making your own makeup?
Doing makeup on people, I definitely still want to do that, but I want to expand that and make a makeup line.
Jibri, are you upset? We're asking Miona some questions.
Yeah, so Jibri is exhibiting discomfort about Miona being asked these questions. Miona seems to be handling it pretty well. I will say that if I was Jibri's, am I saying it right? Jibri's, if I were his parents and I heard that from Miona, I'd be like, what? That doesn't sound like a solid career plan. If you said you plan on working for someone else that does those sorts of things, or starting from the bottom, working your way up, then that sounds doable. But having your own makeup line, is that something that people can just do whenever they want and actually make money off of it? And maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. But if I heard that from my cultural standpoint, I'd be skeptical. Now, maybe the parents are like, well, Jibri makes enough money, so what's the diff? And she'll figure it out. Now, do the parents have the right to sort of control that? I don't think so. Could they say something on behalf of Jibri? Sure. Is it Jibri or Jibri? I think it's Jibri, right? I think I was saying Jibri, which reminded me of Studio Ghibli or Ghibli. I never, I always, the Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki, Spirited Away, Castle in the Sky, Princess Mononoke, Nausicaa of the Wind, Howl's Moving Castle. And is it Jibri or Jibri? I feel like it's got to be Jibri. That just sounds so much easier to hear and say than Jibri. Jibri sounds like gibberish. Jibri sounds like, that sounds like a nice name. Anyway, so they are asking, the mom's asking him, are you uncomfortable here? And again, it's that adolescent kind of signaling of, I'm uncomfortable, stop doing this. And I think what he's worried is that they're going to put Miona off by coming across like they're scrutinizing her. But, they haven't done that overtly. They're just asking questions.
Okay, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad.
Yep.
Right. I think living here with my parents in such a tight living situation is going to be more difficult than I imagined. We've only been talking for a short amount of time, and I can already tell that there's going to be issues.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone for liking this if you felt like liking. Also for commenting and subscribing, that kind of thing. So thanks for that if you've done it. If you haven't done it, super cool with me. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.